This is a true honor, if I may say. I've been nervous about this practically all week because of the gravity of what an amazing event this is. But we have one of the legends of the space, quite frankly, in CZ, CEO and founder of Binance. He needs no introduction, but we will introduce him nevertheless. He's here to give an AMA or answer your questions, whatever they may be, about his career, his life, his experiences about Binance. So we look forward to some great questions, but a brief biography of the great man. He was himself once a student at McGill Blockchain, who we're delighted to are joining us as well, and studied computer science before going on to Bloomberg and working there for 4 years, working on, well, he got promoted 3 times in 18 months, eventually being head of Tradebook Futures development, and then going on to start his own company, Fusion Systems, which again was doing trading infrastructure, which he ran for 8 years before jumping into the blockchain world. And I'm sure we're going to touch on why he got into the blockchain world at that time in 2013. He worked for blockchain.com, BG Tech, OKCoin, and then 2017 founded Binance, and everything really went quite crazy after that. And Binance are probably the best example of speedy execution in the space. So CZ, look, we're so happy to have you. So thank you very much and welcome first and foremost.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. It's a true honor to be talking to you, to be talking here. Also, just a little side note, I actually spent a semester in Waterloo as well. Waterloo University, UW. I did a co-op program as well. So that yeah, so I see Waterloo's name in this list. So
yes, it is.
That bit in there.
Waterloo Blockchain are quite exceptional as well, and many great projects have emerged from Waterloo recently. So I want to give a quick shout out to the Encode Club communities, is many different student clubs and societies. I just want to mention a few that have joined us today. We have from the UK, Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial, UCL, LSE, KCL, in Scotland, Aberdeen, also in the UK, Leeds and York. South Africa, we have Cape Town. Also in Africa, we have Nigeria Blockchain. We have in the US, Berkeley, McGill, Michigan, UCLA. We have Australians joining us very late in the night for them, from Adelaide and Sydney. We have those from Israeli, from Tel Aviv. We have a few in Brazil, a number in India, and Singapore as well. We have NUS, Bernard from NUS Singapore. So it really is a great mix. So thank you all the societies for joining us today. And I want to get straight into things. And I want to start with your time at McGill. So when you were a young student, computer science student, did you want to be an entrepreneur? Did you have entrepreneurial thoughts? What was an 18-year-old CZ like?
I think when I first got in, actually, when I first got into McGill, I was trying to become a doctor because McGill biology was like, I was in the biology major. And then what I found out is I'm not very good at remembering very long vocabulary with biology. So I took a CS course. I really liked it. I took a CS course even in high school. Like yeah, and I don't know if it's called a CS or not, but I started programming Pascal in high school. I really liked it. So 6 months into McGill, I said, well, I got to change. This is not going to work. So, but in McGill, I had a feeling I was going to, but after a couple of years, I did a couple summer jobs, interns. And then I knew I was like probably going to be, end up starting my own company and at least give it a shot. So yeah, I had a feeling, but it wasn't super clear. My dad is an academic. He studied all his life, but I didn't feel that was going to be my life. So yeah, I had a feeling that I might be, well, at least I'll try it. I had no clue that I'll be successful or not. Yeah, so.
Fantastic. And just a quick word, guys, I forgot to mention at the start, but the format is, I'm going to ask a few questions to get things going, to get some ideas in the air, and I want to hand over to all of you. So if you start queuing up now to ask kind of live questions. I see Phil is actually the first one. We'll get to him in a few minutes, but please raise your proverbial hand on Zoom and I will kind of let you kind of ask your question. But so I want to touch on this. So what role do you think universities can play in this journey? Or maybe it told you what you didn't want to do. What is the role of universities, you think, in encouraging entrepreneurship, encouraging kind of startups?
I think universities has a really big role to play, I think I left university like 20 years ago, so I don't really know what they're up to now. But back then, I think the co-op program where you study for 4 months and then work for 4 months, study for 4 months, work for 4 months. So University of Waterloo had that. I think that's a really valuable thing for students to go through. I think learning in university is good, but having the work experience is really necessary. And so I think starting that as early as possible is really important. There are a few, at least during my time, there are a number of things the universities do not teach, which are very important in life later on. Like related to entrepreneurs, like say, they don't teach you, they teach you presentation skills, but they don't teach you fundraising skills. They don't really teach you about equity, dilution, board, organic growth versus raise money. What are the pros and cons? What are the potential conflict of interest between a founder and a board? Whether you want to issue a token or not. This is a very brand new topic, which I'm sure no universities are talking about that right now. So I think ideally I want to see universities start talking about this or educating about this aspects. So I think all of this are very important. Once you get into the real working life, whether you start a company or not, you should understand these concepts. I think these are very basic life concepts. I'm guessing that most universities don't teach that to that extent. Hopefully they will soon.
If you were 21, 22, 23 again, and you were in today's world, what would you do? And you wanted to go into blockchain. Maybe you're in McGill Blockchain Society. What would you want to do at that stage?
I think basically at a younger age, I would highly recommend people to become a expert in something. So basically go deep in one area. If you're like into programming, then you're probably on the tech side. If you are more interested in marketing, promotions, etc., then you're probably on that side. If you want to help people, then you can go on the customer support, etc. So I would actually recommend people to go deep in one area so that you have expertise in one niche. And then after a few years of working in that niche and getting your experience, then you want to go broad. That's typically my recommendation. Not everybody has to follow that route. And I actually wouldn't recommend starting your own company right away. I think you can try it. But if you do, the chances of failure is very high. Zuckerberg started a startup in university and became really successful, but that's a very small number. So and if you do that, then I would recommend manage your risk so that you limit the amount of investments or the amount of resources you risk. So yeah, I mean, I would say I recommend people to try different things early on, but do specialize in one field and become an expert, and then branch out later on.
Awesome. I want to touch upon your experience with, so you did Bloomberg, so you went down the corporate route, rose quickly, and then you did your own company. And you did it with a number of partners. And I heard you say in an interview from a few months ago how you actually wanted to do the crypto thing in 2013. You wanted to start building a crypto exchange there. So 2 questions. One, I'd love to hear, because I know it's an amazing story of how you first found out about crypto in 2013. And 2, what would the world have looked like if you'd gone there and done it with Fusion Systems and done the exchange thing at that point?
Yeah, I think basically it's very hard to predict what if something happened and what's going to be that alternative world looks like. There's a lot of different variables that could change things in different ways. I think basically there's a number of possibilities. If I was the most junior partner in Fusion Systems, I was the youngest guy there, so I was youngest of the partners. So if they really did something, then possibly that the most likely situation would be we spend a lot of time and energy and it fails. Failure is the default for entrepreneurship. Most of the experiments or most of the attempts fail. There's a chance that you will become successful, then I will remain a junior partner there. So that's most likely what's going to happen. But it could also be that, hey, yeah, I think things can take a number of routes, but I think luck plays a huge chance in life, but the important thing is when luck comes, you have to grab it. You have to be able to grab it. Many times, like luck comes and people are not able to grab it. So, for example, in 2017, when Binance was starting, we went from zero to the world's largest exchange in 6 months. During that period of time, and even today, every day there's 200 new exchanges going live. But none of them became the #1 exchange. So the market timing was really good back in 2017, but people still have to grab the chances. So I mean, we did get really, really lucky. So yeah, it's hard to predict the parallel universe. It's hard to know what's going on in the parallel universe. It's probably many of them.
Well, let's talk about Binance. So what was the moment you decided, right, I'm going to do my exchange now? And what were the kind of catalysts in that process?
Yeah, sure. So in 2013, I discussed with people of doing a crypto to crypto exchange. Back then, there was a lot of what we would call altcoins, but the market was too small. Bitcoin was like $200 or $600, so it wasn't a lot going on. The industry was much smaller. There was a crypto to crypto exchange back then called Cryptosys. They eventually, I think, got hacked and shut down. And then in 2015, when I left when I left OKCoin, this idea surfaced again. At that time, Poloniex has already started. I'm not sure about Bittrex, and Poloniex was still pretty small. We look at the volumes and said, well, the volumes are still pretty small, probably not worth doing. And I didn't have the foundation. I was mostly I left the previous company. I was by myself. I got a couple of friends together to do a startup. That's BJ Tech. It's a couple of tech guys. So it was me and 2 other tech guys at the very beginning, and then we grew to 5, but all tech guys. We didn't think we could do marketing. We didn't think we can do customer support. We didn't think we could launch a cryptocurrency exchange and be successful. And the market was pretty small. In 2017, I grew the BJ Tech team to about 30 something people, just under 40. We have a platform already. We have an exchange system that's a cloud exchange that's used by like 30 different other exchanges. And then we have the tech team, we have a product team. We didn't have customer support and marketing team. We had a sales team because it was a B2B business. But we thought we had a few of the components already, and we are missing a few, but we can probably get those up and running. So and also in 2017, we look at the Poloniex volumes. They were doing like $100 million a day, and they were charging like 1% commission. So that's like $1 million in revenue each day. So well, that's a pretty good business. So we thought the market was big enough, and then we just went for it. We didn't expect to be so successful so quickly. To be very frank, we thought we'd be lucky to get into the top 10 in 3 years, but you know, things change quickly sometimes.
I read that you once said that Binance are extremely focused on execution, that 2% of the time should be reserved for decision making, not because you don't make lots of decisions, but it's because you want that speed of process to be so huge. So can you talk to us about, not just in that 6 months in 2017, Binance has kept growing and kept innovating. Can you talk to us about that execution decision cycle and how you've stayed ahead of this? It's one thing to get in the lead. It's another thing to stay in the lead. Can you talk to us about that?
Sure. Yeah. So in my previous startup, like when I was the most junior partner, there were 6 partners starting with, and we grew to like 8 or 10 partners in the firm. And then because no one's a majority owner, majority like shareholder, everyone have to discuss with everyone about for consensus. That was actually really, really slow. That operated, in my opinion, more like a communist party. So we have worked back then. We were using a lot of email, so we had a partners mailing list, and all the partners were spending like, I don't know, hours every day writing emails into that email list, and we're just discussing, debating different issues. It was just a big time sink. So when I started BJ Tech, I said, look, that's not an efficient structure for a startup. So I deliberately retained the share structure so that I had a much stronger voice, and that was made relatively clear to all the other founders and all the other co-founders that joined. So And then from the early days, most of the, especially in the early days, most of the decisions were sort of strategic decisions were made by me. And at that time, I've been working for like 15 years already. So I wasn't a young, I had a bit of experience under my belt. So a lot of, I had a very clear picture of where we're kind of going. So I was able, so I do have, even today, I have a habit of being very comfortable making decisions based on partial information. So that's something that I'm relatively comfortable doing. I don't make all the correct decisions. So I would say there's probably 20, 25, or even maybe 30, 40% of my decisions, which are not right or not optimum. But then you find out quickly and you course correct quickly. So as long as we can react quickly, that's usually okay. So we maintained that into the early days of Binance. So we didn't have a lot of meetings where we got to discuss strategy, different partners debating this and that. Basically, if the two guys debating, they come to me, and I would, most of the time when it comes to me, to be honest, most of the decisions are basically a coin flip, because if it's a clear decision, they would have agreed already. And between coin flips, I would just literally, like in my mind, flip a coin and just pick one way and move forward. And if that turns out to be, the key is to realize whether that's a good decision or not, like a few days later or a couple of weeks later. And if that turns out to be a bad decision, you want to course correct quickly. So that's kind of always been our philosophy. So even though now today, I don't make a lot of decisions in Binance, to be honest, but that culture has stayed. And that kind of allows us to execute very quickly. And people are very comfortable making bold decisions and moving forward. And then they're also very good at course correction, backpedaling if that turned out to, just accepting that that was a bad decision sometimes. So that's kind of how we operate and how we, I think even to today, the Binance team make decisions pretty quickly, and there's not a whole lot of discussions, much less than other companies of our size. And we just execute. And if something goes wrong, we try to pedal back and course correct. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I want to start letting the students ask questions, because I could ask questions all day, but it's more interesting if people do. I want to start with Dagan, who is president of London Blockchain Labs, which is the umbrella for Imperial LSE and UCL. Dagan, over to you. Ask away.
Hey, can I just say it's an absolute pleasure to see you live, CZ. I've been following Binance for many, many years. I've been trading, and yeah, it's like seeing a celebrity. So anyway, my question for you is simple. You mentioned in your fireside chat with Michael Saylor the other day that you first found Bitcoin in July 2017, and then from there you went all in, and it kind of took over your life ever since. What did you have to give up along the way? And how different do you think your life has become now? How different do you think your life would be if you hadn't discovered Bitcoin back then?
Yeah, so I think sooner or later I was going to discover Bitcoin. It's just a matter of time. So I think, once I discovered it, I probably would have come to the same understanding, even like if I was discovering a year later or 2 years later or 5 years later. So I think Michael Saylor just discovered it pretty much now, and he's going all in. So he's kind of going through the same process I was going through back in 2013. I think for me, once you understand Bitcoin and you can see that it has so many advantages, and then for me, I also went to validate the community is there. Today, it's quite easy to validate. In 2013, the community is much smaller. But once I understood it, I knew that was going to be the future, and it's just a matter of time. So for me, I missed the internet. I graduated as the internet was becoming mainstream, but I was too young to be able to catch that wave. So for me, like I was like 30 something 7 years ago, so I was 35, and I was like, okay, this is the next big thing. I can't miss this. So so for me, it was like, yeah, so I'm gonna sell my house, go all in. But for me, actually financially, it wasn't that big of a risk. I knew I can always find a job that can support my lifestyle. I didn't have a super extravagant lifestyle, so it wasn't like, okay, I'm gonna miss rent next month. So I made sure I had enough money to pay for rent, pay for food, etc. So my life is not going to be impacted, even though I could lose, say back then, like I could lose $1 million, etc. But and that's pretty much my whole net worth back then. It is what it is, but my life will be okay. So risk-wise, it's a big risk, but for me, like I just thought, look, if things doesn't work out, I can always get a job at a bank. So that's the fallback. So that's kind of my mental process back then. Yeah, so I think if anyone wants to take risks, taking risks at a younger age is much easier, but you still need to manage your risk so that you need to make sure that your lifestyle is not so severely impacted.
Thank you for your answer.
Thank you very much, Dagan. Right, so guys, same approach. If you have questions you want to ask, please raise your hand. Don't be shy. Michael, I physically see you putting your hand up. So let's go to Michael. Michael is actually the winner of our one I mentioned earlier, the winner of our hackathon in the summer. He's was a researcher at Oxford, now is full-time building Euler, which is a compound competitor that just raised and is hoping to launch in the coming months. So Michael, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Anthony. Yeah, nice to speak to you, CZ. I really just wanted to ask what if you had any advice for somebody just starting out now. We have a really small team, just three co-founders, and we're also 3 technical people. So how do you sort of manage that, and how do you grow a team and bring in marketing people and grow a team with different expertise to yourselves?
Okay, so this is your first startup, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just on that sort of taking that first leap into the unknown.
Okay, so in your first startup, my biggest advice would be get VC money.
So get VC money
and make sure that you don't sign it as a collateral loan. So you don't have any debt obligations if the business fails.
Yeah.
So you will not be under financial burden if that project doesn't work out. So in your first project, you do want to burn other people's money. Very honestly speaking, and VC money is the best. In this situation, because they do know how to tolerate the risks. Make sure when you sign any papers, it does not hold yourself or your partners personally liable to the money. So if the project fails, the project fails. So this way, at least financially, you move the burden off to the institutional investors, which is their expertise. And they will also give you advice. They will also give you pressure when things don't go right. And then initially, I think the partner structure is going to be tricky. Most likely, if this is your first startup, you're not going to have majority shares, which means that you will not be able to sort of dictate decisions that quickly, as I described before. But that's probably okay. When you're starting your first business, you probably want a second opinion, discuss things, etc. So things may not be super clear all the time. So and then I think the first part is really just getting the product right. So you want to get the product. So you have a bunch of tech guys, which is good. So you need to get the product. You should launch the broken product as early as possible so that your friends can try it. And then once the product is good, once the product at least have stickiness, meaning that if you give it to one user, they're going to invite 2 more users. So once you reach that level, then you want to look for a marketing partner. You will dilute your shares to do that. So yeah, so I would say that's probably the natural what I would recommend or what I would foresee will happen. And also bear in mind, there's a very high chance of failure. That's just business. So it's nothing against you. It's nothing on you. And have a big heart to tolerate that kind of trouble. So other than that, good luck.
Thank you. That's great advice. Cheers.
Yeah, you need a lot of luck.
Fingers crossed. Cheers.
Great. Well, let's go to Jack next. Jack's got his hand up. Over to you, Jack.
Hi there. Thanks for your time and thanks for coming today. It's been really good so far. And this question is just about sort of the long-term and economic standpoint of this. So I'm particularly interested in whether or not you would envision sort of more of the world's pension funds, and we've seen a few of them already do this, but more of the world's pension funds, which sort of traditionally focus on equities and bonds and other sort of asset classes, do you think that they will become sort of heavier on sort of buying and holding crypto assets for capital gain in the longer term, and then including these in their clients' portfolios? And if so, would you believe that the sort of newer and emerging cryptocurrencies could be sort of given some level of favorability over the established market leaders that we're seeing at the minute, like Bitcoin and Ethereum? And how relevant, finally, would you see the regulatory and sort of quantum safety pressure around crypto in this context being? How relevant is that to the pension world?
Sure. Yes, some very detailed questions. Yeah, so first of all, I think all of the funds eventually will have to dip into crypto. And in fact, I think if you look at the longer horizon, I think, look, if you look at 10, 20 years from now, I think cryptocurrencies are going to be they're probably going to occupy 95% of the currencies in the world. So I think this is, in my mind, this is a situation similar to emails overtaking postal mails, and then text chats, so instant messaging taking over emails. So I think this is that type of change. Regarding, sorry, the third question is on the regulations impacting this pension funds. I think regulations is really hard to predict. I think over the next couple of years, the first versions of regulations in almost all countries are going to be overly restrictive. What the regulators are going to do is they're going to copy the banking regulations and try to apply them to crypto. But that's not going to work. Crypto works differently, and crypto can do different things. And these the progressive regulators will have better regulations, and they will see more adoption and more innovation in their jurisdictions, and the other regulators most likely will have to copy. So I think that's what's going to happen. But I do think that the majority of the pension funds, if you look at a longer horizon, 10, 15 years out, the majority bulk of those money will be in a cryptocurrency. Most of them will go to Bitcoin first, and then but I don't think that we will only have Bitcoin going forward in the future. I think in a decentralized world, any project is going to issue a token, any application is going to issue a token, any company, any country. There's going to be a lot of people trying different tokens. I think Bitcoin is going to act really strongly as a store of value and the sort of ultimate reserve. But there will be application-specific blockchains, social media blockchains, supply chain management blockchains, media blockchains, music blockchains, movie blockchains. So there will be a lot of different applications. Bitcoin's capacity does not handle applications that well. Bitcoin, you can only handle a few transactions per second. So I think Bitcoin is the sort of grandfather. It's also the most decentralized version of all cryptocurrency right now. So I think Bitcoin will have a significant advantage for newcomers coming in. They will buy Bitcoin first. But in terms of newer applications, I think there will be other blockchains that will also be popular. So I do see, I always say, I see thousands of blockchains and millions of tokens in the future. So that's kind of my answer to the three questions. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that question. Amin's been waiting a while. Amin, a serial winner in our hackathons and very good trader. Go ahead, Amin.
Hi. So I think earlier you said that there's a good portion of which is opportunity and luck. And I think we saw a lot of that during the 2017 craze where everything the market rose, but most of it has fell down. But it looks like Binance has retained its value and it's like survived and just pulled through stronger than ever before in the downturn. What do you think are the main drivers of why Binance has shown itself and how it's retained everything and how it's stayed like really strong throughout and then come out stronger than ever as right now?
Yeah, so I think basically whenever the rising tide do lift all boats, but then when the tide recedes, the stronger ones will stay. I personally think it's just a matter of execution. So in 2018 or 2017, we got really lucky with the ICO craze, right? So, and we are the new crypto-to-crypto exchange. We engineered our platform to be able to support a large number of cryptocurrencies, so that this caught the traditional Bitcoin exchanges by surprise. They took a while to react. So due to the ICO craze, we ramped up very quickly, and we got a lot of users. 2018 was tough. So Bitcoin's top price was like 19,000 something. As back then, December 2017, January 2018, the BNB price was like 24. That's the all-time high back in that wave. And then we fell. Bitcoin fell to about 3,000. BNB fell to about $6. Still 60 times our ICO price. So not too bad. But in 2018 we were actually building our platform up to handle the next wave. So we're building performance improvements. So we did not see a whole lot of features. But in 2019, we added so many features. We launched Binance Chain. We launched margin. We launched futures. We launched we acquired Cross Wallet. We have a whole slew of products all around the BNB. And then we launched IEOs in early 2019. That kind of kicked off the price gain for Bitcoin again. And mid 2019, BNB shot up to like $39. So that surpassed the previous all-time high way before Bitcoin recovered. So I think in my mind, it's just we're putting in a lot more effort to building the team, to releasing new products and use cases. So it's not that was just pure, in my mind, that was just pure hard work by the team. It was in a very down market, but we kept hiring. So actually, this is another tip for anyone who wants to be entrepreneurs. You want to raise money when the market is good. So now is a good time to raise money because now everyone's rich, the market is good, money is flowing. And when the market is down, no one wants to invest. In middle 2018 to like even 6 months ago, not a whole lot of people were investing. All the VC withdrew from the market. And when the times are bad, you want to hire people. So when times are good, everyone wants like $1 million salary because all the new startups have money and they're just splashing it everywhere. When times are bad, everyone's losing their jobs and you can hire really strong people at very reasonable salaries. So so we hired a lot of people during 2018 and 2019. So we grew from like in end of 2017, we were just 60 people. Now we grew up to about 1,500 people. So we hired a lot of people during the last 2 years. So, but now we're actually deliberately hiring slower because now the times are good again. so now is a good time to raise money. So that's kind of how I saw we reacted to the bull market, bear market, etc. But yeah, I think it's just there's also a lot of luck. We got a lot of strong people. We executed really strongly. I don't think I made any smart decisions. We just said, look, we just got to push out more products that people use. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amin. Should we go to Amy from University of Penn? Over to you, Amy.
Hi, CZ. I'm very honored to be here today to hear you speak. The question that I had for you is related to more of the like market structure of cryptocurrencies. I would like to know what you view as the primary frictions for more widespread adoption of cryptocurrencies and how we can resolve those frictions.
Okay. In my opinion, the number one friction we have today is wallets. So today, most people are not able to store a private key securely. So if you grab 1,000 people off the street, I would say that's probably one guy that can secure the private key securely, like in real securely. To do that, you have to protect from hackers, which means that you should never use a device that connects to the internet. You can use hardware wallets, that's okay. And then with hardware wallets, you could lose the device or the device could break. So you have to protect it from yourself, which means you have to have secure backup. Secure backup means you have to encrypt the seed onto either a USB drive or somehow, and you have to have multiple copies of those in different places because if your apartment gets burned by a fire, you don't want to lose that backup and together with maybe your primary device. And thirdly, you got to protect from yourself being unavailable. So look, we all die sooner or later. And then if you guys are probably too young to consider this, but for me, I got to consider my if something happens to me, who does my kids get still able to access my crypto? So you need to set up that inheritance mechanism. There's things called dead man switches, etc. So once you get into that level of depth, like 99.9% of people on the street cannot hold cryptocurrency securely. This is why they all use a centralized, most people try to use a centralized exchange like Binance.com. For me, I actually much prefer to push a decentralized solution like Trust Wallet or even Ledger or anything like that. But more people lose money that way. So I think this is actually the highest friction point. We don't have a very easy to use solution that's also secure for the average person. So until we solve this problem, then people are not able to hold their cryptocurrency secure. Most people are not able to hold their cryptocurrency securely, and that's going to block adoption. I hear every day people come to me and say, CZ, hey, I lost my Ledger wallet and I don't have the backup seed. What do I do? I'm like, I can't help you. There are guys who says, look, I created a Binance account 2 years ago and I logged in, the money's not there. It's like, what? And then it turned out that they created 2 accounts 2 years ago, they forgot. So the second group I can help, the first group I can't. So I think we gotta have real secure, decentralized custody solutions that's easy to use. The last part is really, really hard. So I think that's the biggest bottleneck. All these other factors like regulation, all this other stuff, I think is much better now. I'm not too worried about those things.
Awesome. Thank you very, very much. Over to Brandon, one of our co-hosts this event, Oxford Blockchain Society. Brandon's a quantum researcher at the moment. Over to you, Brandon.
Thanks, Anthony. Thanks, CZ. Yeah, no, it's quite a pleasure to talk to you. I guess it's interesting that Amy asked that question because I kind of have a follow-on, which is, you mentioned essentially seeing the majority of the world's currency being cryptocurrencies, but how do you see us getting there? Because that means quite a big change to the current system, and then these day-to-day frictions that essentially people need to endure to store their keys securely, and versus someone just signing up to PayPal and buying Bitcoin or Litecoin that way.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of different things from the what causes people to switch. We haven't reached the what we call tipping point yet. But we will reach there sooner or later. Now we have institutions allocating the corporate treasury into crypto. And that sooner or later, that's going to be a race because a microseller just bought 40,000 Bitcoins. There's not that many, there's not enough for every company to buy that, to buy that amount. So the later ones will spend a lot more money to buy a much tinier amount. Once, I don't know when we'll cross the tipping point, but once we cross it, everyone's going to rush in. That will happen sooner or later, and the pension funds may come in. The pension funds are like some of them are in trillions of dollars. So I think there could be there could potentially be many different factors that can trigger it. Once that's triggered, what's going to happen? I'm not sure. So Bitcoin price most likely will go up. Are all of them going to be in Bitcoin? I'm not sure. Also, when that happens, there will be much stronger demand for tools for people to use Bitcoin or to solve the problems that we have. That's the problem I described is one problem. There are multiple solutions for that problem already. There's threshold signatures, TSS. There's other more innovative ways to solve it. When the market gets bigger, there will be more money poured onto solving those problems. When there are more money poured onto those problems, there'll be more teams trying to solve it. And it's a chicken and egg problem. And if one side gets larger, the other side also gets larger. So the problem will be solved. So yeah, so I'm not too worried about having these problems. Every industry have problems. You guys are probably most of you guys are probably too young, but when the internet first started, even in 1995, people were talking about e-commerce, but people were joking about it. Like there's a lot of credit card fraud. Delivery takes 2 weeks instead of the next day. So if you order something, it takes 2 weeks or 2 months. So there's a lot of problems back then. Video streaming doesn't work. Video conferencing doesn't work, even with one-on-one, not to mention a couple hundred people on a call. So all of these problems were solved over time. So I think, I don't know when. The hardest part about prediction is always about when. I can predict that Bitcoin price will be pretty high, but I just don't know when it will happen. So that's always the tougher part. But overall, though, the direction is very clear. Things are going in this direction.
Awesome. Great question. Thank you very much, Brandon. Now we're going over to Claire from Cambridge.
Hi, Susie. Yeah, thank you
Hi,
for
Claire.
sharing your experiences. It's very inspiring. And my question is more Binance related. So we observed that Binance from the beginning is a centralized exchange platform and has been very successful. And recently DeFi has been a very heated topic. And we also observed that Binance has also launched its own decentralized exchange, Binance DEX, and also receives great success. So my question is that what will be the future direction for Binance? So in other words, in a spectrum of centralization to decentralization, what position would you like Binance to take?
Sure. I think if we look again, if we look at the longer future, say 10, 20 years from now, I think the future is definitely decentralized. I think there will be tools for people to hold custody of their own cryptocurrency securely, and they can trade directly on high liquidity, high throughput, high volume decentralized exchanges. Right now, the decentralized technology is not quite there yet. The decentralized exchanges, even though they've grown quite a lot this year, they're still relatively small, and the Ethereum blockchain is really expensive and not at the current phase is not that high throughput. So in the short term, I think the centralized exchanges still have an edge. I don't know when that flip will happen. So most likely, there's a few different forces at play here. Even for the centralized crypto exchanges, we have not seen the mass adoption yet. So probably right now, I would estimate probably only 0.1% of the world's population are using crypto. So for those guys, it's much easier for them to use a centralized exchange. So if that wave coming in, if we want to reach 10% penetration or 20 or 80% penetration for the population, for those billions of people, they will probably come to a centralized exchange first. So the centralized exchange may grow bigger in the short term, who knows? Or it could be that this decentralized exchange technologies improve so quickly that people can bypass the centralized exchange and use directly the decentralized exchanges. Both of those situations could be possible, are possible. And so I don't know, there's a few different dynamics at play. So the way I like to think about this type of situations, I don't try to predict the future. We just let users decide for us. If we see more and more users are going to the decentralized exchange area, then we want to increase our resource allocations, basically people to work on it. And we want to incentivize our community, have more hackathons, have more bounties, have more grants for people to develop on Binance Smart Chain, or maybe even a third chain, a fourth chain, all using BNB, hopefully. So we are, in my mind, I'm not going to be able to predict the future. So we're going to be reactive in that way. But we want to make sure that when that flip happens, we at least is there and we're trying. We may not be successful, to be honest. Somebody else may make a super duper decentralized exchange that takes all the market share, but at least we will be trying there. We don't want. I absolutely want Binance to avoid the mistake of, because we're trying to protect the centralized exchange, and we're gonna try to push off DeFi. We're not gonna be able to do that. The industry will move with or without us. So Kodak is a very classic example of this. They invented digital cameras, but they try to protect the film business because it was so profitable. And then they missed the digital camera business completely, and they recently filed for bankruptcy, I believe. So that lesson is very, very clear now. So we do want to embrace new technologies that could potentially disrupt us. So, but we now have people working on both, and we're actually funding a lot of community projects for the DeFi space. And so I don't know when it will happen. It may happen next year. It may happen next 5 years. But we want to be ready when that change happens, and we want to have both experiments going on.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that question. Going over to Hugo now from LSE.
Hi there. Thank you, Anthony, and it's a real pleasure to meet you, CV, as well.
Oh, Hugo.
I'd actually like to just quickly continue on from the previous point that you were talking about. So you mentioned the Binance Smart Chain that you've just introduced into, I think this year. It seems like a very small part of the potential here is in decentralized exchanges. And if we do kind of look to the wider aspects of DeFi, do you see the role of the Binance Smart Chain kind of resembling that of Ethereum, in particular Ethereum 2.0? Will that mean that there's competition between using decentralized applications on either protocols? And I know that the future is very hard to predict, but what do you think?
Yeah, I think in any industry there's a collaboration and competition, both at play. The blockchain crypto industry is nowhere near saturated, so we're probably at 0.1% penetration at best. And even with that 0.1%, most people don't have 100% of their net worth allocated into Bitcoin. So there's probably a lot more than 1,000 times to grow. So in a non-saturated market, in such a tiny nascent new market, the industry players should work together to grow the industry. So that's usually much more beneficial than trying to grab market share in this 0.1%. So even if we occupy that, even if we occupy 90% of that market share, we're still 0.009%. So and if we can grow that industry to 1% or to 10%, then we increase 100 times. So that's much better. I think so. Given that, I think all the projects, myself, Binance included, Vitalik, Ethereum included, we are trying to work together to grow the industry. We have a little bit of competition going on sometimes, but it's a very friendly competition. There is some overlap. I think Ethereum did a lot of strong innovation, and Ethereum did a lot of really hardcore engineering work and innovations. I think when Vitalik spoke to me in 2015 saying that he was going to build this thing, I told him he took too big of a bite to chew. Like turning complete languages on a blockchain. That's just like and I said this face to face to him. So I didn't buy Ethereum back then. So that's not a very good. So I was wrong. But I do think that Ethereum has a few drawbacks today, namely being on the performance. And Ethereum is really, really strong on the network effect. There's many projects on Ethereum. There's many tokens on Ethereum. It has a super loyal community. It has a really strong foothold. And we just want to improve the scalability and performance of it, because for me, Vitalik is really a genius. He's like researching all these really advanced ideas. My background and my interest has always been making applications. So take the technology, make sure people use it, and make sure everyday people can use it. So that's always my focus. So my focus has always been, so my thought process is, okay, so we want DeFi, we want a decentralized exchange. And if I know the exchange business relatively well, and we need performance, we need high throughput, we need like hundreds of thousands of orders per second. That can't be handled on a blockchain right now. So we want to make faster blockchains. And Ethereum 2.0 is not, even though theoretically it's already out, but the performance enhancement versions are not going to be out for a couple of years at best. So that's going to take a while. So, and also for Binance Smart Chain is not, in my opinion, is just going to be one of the experiments that we will try. We will Binance, the BNB coin right now lives on 2 blockchains. There could be 3 blockchains that you can be the native token on. It can be 4 blockchains. It can be 5 blockchains. But there will just be one coin. So so that's kind of my thinking, my approach. So for me, it's not really a competition with Ethereum per se. And there's many other blockchains in the space. There's many other newer blockchains which are faster, which are actually pretty interesting as well. We don't know which one's going to take hold. Once they do, we may copy some of them. Who knows? And when we copy, we'll try to make it slightly better, or hopefully a lot better. But I mean, to be honest, Ethereum didn't invent blockchain. Ethereum copied blockchain from Bitcoin, right? So everyone's copying from somebody. Yeah, so in my view, that we're not really trying to compete. We should not compete at this stage. This stage is much more important to work with everybody. This is why on Binance.com we list Ethereum, we list all ERC20 tokens. We want this industry to get bigger.
Fantastic, thank you very much, Hugo. Going over to Fraser from Edinburgh.
Hi, thanks for coming to talk to us. So my question is about like I'm back home right now with my parents for Christmas, and they're always asking me about like what I'm working on and stuff. Is it just like, do you think the general population kind of should have an intimate knowledge of how blockchain works, and like how blocks are mined and all these concepts? Or do you think in the far future they'll kind of just use it and not really think twice about it?
I think the general public should just use it and not think about it. The general public should not have to think about private keys. They should not have to think about asymmetric encryption. They should not have to think about blocks. All of those concepts have to be abstracted away. So normal people don't talk about TCP/IP packets. They don't talk about retries, handshakes, and stuff like that. So that's what internet is built on. They don't even talk about HTML tags. They don't talk about CSS style sheets, stuff like that. So all of those are for early adopters or for the guys building the industry or for the engineers. The general population should just be, okay, you have an address and I'll send it to you. That's it. Here's my wallet address. You can send it to me. Or if other applications are available, this is my wallet. I can plug into my gaming console and I can now spend coins to play games. So it should be at that level. We can't expect the general public to understand blocks, encryption. Most people go crazy when they hear that.
Awesome, thank you very much. Anchor, going over to you.
Hi, CZ. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you? So my question is with you that are you planning to introduce any new products in the market, like you are having Launchpad or farming or something like that? Is there any new innovative thing going in your mind?
Yes, so not in my mind, but there's a lot of innovative things going on in the team or in the ecosystem. So the way Binance works is not a top-down driven approach. So I don't try to dream up projects that the team have to do, etc. So we have a large team now, and the team's working on, I don't know, 50 to 100 different projects all at the same time. And I don't even know what all of them are. And most of them, I only learn about them when they're about to go live, or when they're about to, or sometimes even after they go live. Once in a while, I'll have an idea. I would ask somebody, hey, is this a good idea or not? And if it's okay, would you guys be interested in taking that forward and run with it? So yeah, so there's always a lot of different things brewing in the Binance team. And I actually don't know which one's going to be released when. There are many different things. There are people talking about payment solutions. There are people talking about gaming. There are people talking about other type of blockchains for BNB. So all of those things are happening. My approach is I'm not a good micromanager, and I don't try to dictate what people do. I kind of at this size, I just try to dictate the general direction. So we want to do crypto. We want to do anything that's infrastructure related, anything that could increase adoption of crypto. That's the general direction, and people are more or less free to do what they think is right. We do have a couple of senior leaders that kind of look over the shoulders of people to make sure that people don't
Sorry
go
to
crazy.
interrupt you. I want to just ask one more thing, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
You always say that you are 99% in BNB and 1% in BTC. How much that means actually? See, just this I want to ask.
Sure. So I can give you the numbers. It's pretty clear. I have about 1,500 BTC. That's from 2014 when I sold my house for like
so nice.
back then. Yeah, back then I bought average around $600. So that's about just under $1 million US dollars worth of Bitcoin back then.
And that BTC also you have got by selling your house, right?
Yeah. So so I think today is worth about $27 million if my math is correct.
Yes.
And then but that's about 1% of my net worth today, at least on the books. So I do.
The remaining you are having in BNB, right?
Yes. So BNB, and then I think the Binance Corporation probably have some value. The shares probably have some value to it. I don't know how much it's really worth. Those are what I call book value or paper value. It's a number on a piece of paper, but it's not cash in my bank account, which I don't want anyway.
So you are having more confidence on BNB rather than BTC, right?
Yeah, I'm confident in both. So, but for me, like my goal for sure is to have BNB outrun BTC, right? So I think BTC will have a heck of a run. But the only thing, if I don't believe that we can make BNB run faster than BTC, then we should cancel that project and just promote BTC, right? Why work so hard, spend so much effort, so much sleepless nights, and work on something that maybe if I don't believe that, I should stop Binance and just promote BTC.
Yes.
Awesome, Anchor. Thank you very much for those pressing questions. We're going to go to Dan next. Go on, Dan.
Thanks for coming on today, Steezy. It's been really inspiring just hearing your journey and that kind of stuff. But my questions kind of coming back to the entrepreneurial sides and startups. You said that there'd be points where it was just a complete coin flip, and I think obviously everyone knows entrepreneurial adventures are trial and error based. Do you have any tips where you should just actually cut your losses and just get out of a decision you've made and then switch to the other thing? Because I think a lot of the questions I have are just regarding when should you just stop and cut your losses?
Well, I mean, theoretically, yeah, that's a very good question. Theoretically, you want to cut your losses as soon as possible, right? So as soon the minute you know that is not the right thing, you want to cut your losses and try to hopefully pivot to a different direction or try something else. There are some decisions which have long impacts. Your equity split structure with your partners, that typically is not easy to change, and you want to get that right, typically upfront. But what happens is most of the time it's not going to be 100% right. So typically you say, oh, this guy, I'm a tech guy, and then I'll start with 100%. I'm going to invite a marketing partner to join, and going to give him 20%. That's a lot, right? But then he doesn't deliver, so 20% is a lot. I should have given 5%, but maybe even 1%. Who knows? So a lot of those decisions are not going to be 100% correct as time goes on. You also, and then you have to decide, oh, at what time do I want to fire this guy? At what time do I want to cause a big debate and tear the team apart? Some of those decisions are much, much tougher. So having a good judgment on people and on character and having set up the structure properly is very important. Other decisions are easier. Look, we developed this feature and nobody's using it. Yes, we spent 3 months developing that. Let's scratch that and start again. There'll be some cost to it. Those decisions are a lot easier. And we tried a marketing campaign, didn't work. That's much easier. Say, don't do that next time. Next week, try something different. So yeah, so there are different decisions. So one key is ideally, as you accumulate more experience, before you make those decisions, you need to know how big those decisions are. Is this going to be a long-term impact? Is this short-term impact? Smaller decisions, you make them quickly. Long-term decisions, you got to think it through. Awesome.
CC, are we okay to run a few minutes over? I know there's a few questions remaining.
Sure. No problem. It's 11 p.m. here. Nothing else planned after that.
Apart from sleep. Now you make me feel really bad, but we're gonna.
It's okay. No. I usually sleep pretty late, so. Yeah.
That's extremely kind. Okay, let's now go to who have we got next? We have Fred Liu, researcher at Cambridge.
Oh, hey, thanks, Anthony and CZ. Just a little bit of background. I'm also the previous president of Cambridge Blockchain Society. Now recently moved to MIT to take my research fellow projects. So I would like to ask for like maybe advice on startup like me are doing, just tapping into blockchain field. So we are trying to build the infrastructure of data sharing. So the idea is like we use the blockchain as the underlying layer to facilitate AI or other model sharing without reviewing your actual data. And when we are tapping into this field, we found like a blockchain has some like a native advantage, but also it's many problems it couldn't solve. For example, the endpoint problem, if you want to apply in a supply chain, there's no way from blockchain you can tell whether this item is that. So to achieve that, we have to combine other piece of technology, say AI and IoT, to give this good identity before being published to the chain. And when we are solving this issue, we found people are more interested in our AI algorithm there, as we have some sort of advantage in dealing with sparse data. And we also get a security project signed a contract. So the problem we are now facing is like there are several technology lying in front of us, and as a small startup, as we are short-handed. So we think blockchain is the future, but now currently it's the AI and IoT is giving us bread and butter. So just want to have your idea on this as a startup. So what would you choose on the technology diversity, or maybe in your point of view, where are the areas maybe blockchain could be a good fit? And of course, beside cryptocurrency. Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Yeah, before I answer this question, let me make a quick advertisement. We are hiring, and we are hiring especially from universities. So if any of you guys want intern jobs, if any friends wants intern jobs, I think this is by far the best group I've met in a long while for students. So yeah, please do pass on the message and have them apply. If you don't know how, send me a message. It's cz@binance.com. And we'll have somebody respond to those emails. Yeah, so before I'm afraid that people may drop off and not get the message. So Anthony, I wanted to squeeze that in there.
Definitely.
Yeah. So yeah, Fred, to your question, it is very, very common to pivot to end up doing something that's completely different from what you originally thought you were going to do as a startup. Happens all the time. That's number one. The second point is blockchain is not a solve all problems technology. Blockchain has many limitations. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, based on what you said in that brief description, I would say pursue what's your bread and butter, which is AI, big data. I think you probably have something working there already, and there's some value that to be explored. Don't be married to blockchain. AI is a big field. Big data is a big field. They all have high growth potential. Blockchain is not the only best thing in the world. And look, if you chase those things down and they don't turn out to be anything, you can try something else on the blockchain side. And even if those things in the good case, even if they become successful, you can sell your company in a few years and still do something in the blockchain space. You guys are so young, right? So yeah, so don't be married to the original idea at all. Before Binance, BJ Tech is the previous company that I, together with a couple of tech guys, funded, and that eventually turned into Binance. When we first funded that company, we actually wanted to do a crypto exchange in Japan, because the other two guys were in Japan, and I had a lot of experience in Japan. And then we were building this platform. We were like writing the matching engine, etc. But during that process, we figured out, wait a second, like none of us speak very good Japanese. We can't launch an exchange in Japan. And we're talking with other exchanges in Japan. They all want to buy the technology, but they don't they want to invest in a technology company. But like we figured out we couldn't run an exchange. So we pivoted into a cloud exchange service provider. So anyone can sign up and run exchange, and we'll give them a cloud implementation. And then 2 years later, that business, so we have 30 clients, but then we wanted to do a crypto to crypto exchange again. And now this time we're not doing it in Japan, we're doing it worldwide. We were focusing in China initially, but then after the ICO, we said we're gonna do worldwide. So we pivoted back a few times, back and forth. So that happens all the time in startups. So Binance wasn't started from day one as the crypto to crypto exchange. So that same team is pretty much all in Binance today. So that's how we came to be, and it's very, very common. So don't get married to the blockchain idea. Yeah.
Fantastic. Let's go to Jean from KCL. Oh, go on.
Yeah, Fred, I could be wrong, so don't take my advice literally. Like if you're taking my advice and things doesn't work out, don't blame me. So could be wrong.
Of course, it's very inspiring to share, to understand other thoughts on this. Yeah, we have the similar thought. Yeah, great. Great to be
just
connected.
My opinion.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thanks, Fred. Let's go to Jean, for students at KCL.
Hello, I just wanted to say thank you for coming and hosting and doing this AMA. It's actually really inspiring, so thank you. I wanted to ask you a question actually about the future of Binance and the problem of regulations, especially because many people involved in crypto have strong feelings about regulations, especially when it comes to exchange. And it seems likely that an increase in regulation is probably inevitable, which probably means also stiffer audit requirements and stuff. So what does Binance plan to do regarding future regulations, especially in places like the US, and how will you adapt and keep yourself decentralized and such?
Sure. So I think this is a fairly complex question. Around different parts of the world, there are different sets of regulations. But I think the fundamental principle is we as a company, as a centralized entity, we're not going to be able to fight regulators. So that part is very clear. For most startups, you're not going to be able to fight regulators. And also different regulators have different strengths. US has the strongest regulators, so you don't want to get in trouble with them. So you got to pick your battles. You got to understand your relative strength. So there's no fight. At the same time, there are a lot of room for innovations in the space, especially still like today because the regulations in the crypto space are not very complete. They're not very thorough. There's still a lot of gray areas. And there's many different countries in the world, and most of the countries don't have very clear regulations even today. So you could operate in a gray area. That's where most new technologies and new businesses operate, and that's where a lot of the opportunities are. But over time, if you're domiciled in one location, if you're living in one country, you generally need to be compliant with the local regulations. So there's really not a whole lot of ways about it. But in this particular industry, there are a lot of truly decentralized projects. Those are ideally projects where you don't know who the founders are, Bitcoin being the strongest example. And there are a number of DeFi projects where people don't like to disclose their names, and people just remain anonymous and just write code. So there will be more of those projects. And hopefully those projects will give pressure to regulators so that, look, if you really clamp down on all the centralized businesses, all the volume is just going to go to decentralized exchanges with anonymous founders and privacy coins, etc. So there's always going to be some balance. I don't know how the different forces are going to play out. For myself, my personal opinion is I strongly value freedom, independence, and decentralization. But at the same time, we run a relatively large business, and we're not going to be able to hide or escape. So it's a tricky balance. We have to be fully compliant in where we operate, and at the same time, I do hope the decentralized technologies keep pushing forward, keep pushing the boundaries, so that people are able to use much more decentralized solutions, which are unfortunately a little bit harder to regulate because everything lives on the blockchain. There's no KYC, no AML. So we'll see how that plays out. I don't really know exactly, but in my view, there's always a tricky balance. Hopefully we can find a good balance, and so that we balance the risk and ease of use and innovation. We'll see. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Good question, Gene. Over to Munez from Leeds Blockchain Society.
Thanks, Anthony. And thank you so much, CZ, for being here today. It's truly a privilege, and I'm very, very inspired to hear from your experiences. So I've got two questions for you. The first question, I'd like to hear a bit about your attitudes towards resilience in your entrepreneurial journey, as Binance has faced many challenges since it was initially based in China, from moving to Japan and Taiwan and eventually Malta, circumventing all these regulatory uncertainties, dealing with a $40 million hack, and having to adapt quickly and efficiently in creating an independent US exchange. So to entrepreneurs who are in a similar situation, what words of advice would you have to persevere in the face of continuous obstacles? So that's my first question.
Sure. I would just change one word in there. We're not circumventing regulation. We're just trying to.
Yeah,
that's all right. Yeah. So got to be politically correct. But I think there's a very fine balance between perseverance and sometimes being stubborn and being stupid. So I think you got to look at. There's a confidence level, there's a understanding the world as it is, and there's understanding your business, understanding your abilities, and then also understanding when something's not going to work. So when something's not going to work, you got to give up. You got to try something else. You got to change directions. So, but when something's really difficult or when something's just not clear, that's different. So having a strong understanding on that is quite important. So for example, so when we moved from China to Japan, the team size was 40 something people, less than 50. We thought we could do it. We had about $10 million of funds in crypto, and we thought that was enough to at least get us over the bump, and that's enough to carry us. And actually, just before that, the reason we only have we only have 10. Well, actually, we had 9, is because we spent we raised 15 million 2 months ago, and then we had to spend 6 million on making up for some users' losses for other ICOs. So that was a tough decision as well. Like, so that's like more than a third of the company's cash reserves of a young project, like only 2 months old. At the time, we were not profitable. I thought, look, 9 million is still a lot of money, and we can move 40 people. Most of them can live on a relatively low expense basis, and we'll just rent a bigger apartment and have everyone work there. So I had experiences in Japan, etc. So I kind of knew what the lay of the land is, and I knew that that's something we can probably pull off. So that was a tough decision that turned out to be quite good. And then there is definitely a lot of different pressure in business. It's going to come from all over the place. But when we got into this business, we knew that regulations are going to be it's going to cause pressure for us. We knew we'll have to deal with it throughout for the next 10 years, and that's still the case. We knew security was going to be is going to be tricky because nothing's 100% secure. So we will probably suffer some hacks. And actually, we were very lucky that the hack happened in 2019, and when we were relatively mature, we were relatively stable, and had we were much stronger. If that hack had happened, say, in October or like a year earlier or a year and a half earlier, it would be much harder to recover. Back then, we were already the market leader, and we had a longer period of time to prove ourselves, and we have a lot of credibility and trust built into the community, and so we were able to withstand that shock. That was a big shock. Yeah, there's a lot of pressure when running a startup, and there's a lot of like curveballs coming from left field and different people giving you different pressure. But there's pressure, and there's sort of things that you can't really okay, this is a dead end. Let's walk away from that. We did stop many of our projects. For example, Binance Info is no longer being pursued, so it's now being merged into CoinMarketCap. So that was a situation where we said, let's build something. Well, CoinMarketCap has all the traffic, so let's build something to see if we can compete. And we built something, the traffic doesn't come. And we said, let's try again. We actually tried a few times, and then we said, okay, let's buy CoinMarketCap. So then let's merge with them. So we said, well, that's not worth pursuing anymore. Let's. There are things where you know you're at a dead end, and then there's no point in continue trying. You're just wasting energy and time and money. There are times where it's just times are tough, and just gotta persevere through. So understanding those two takes some experience, but you know, if you think about this type of problems long enough or often enough, it comes with a little bit with experience and a little bit with just better judgment.
Thank you, CZ, for that answer. The second question, it was back with popular request from Leeds Blockchain. What's your top 3 favorite books of all time? It can be from any genre at all, anything. Sure. Really. Yeah.
Actually, yeah. So actually, I would actually recommend 3 non-blockchain, non-startup books. The first book I would recommend is actually *Sapiens*, the brief history of humankind. It's a bit of a long book, but I believe very strongly that when we live in a world with people, understanding humans is really, really important. Understand how we think, why love only lasts for 3 years roughly, or forever for some of you guys. But why we behave the way we are is really, really important. That book goes into a lot of depth of how we become to be, why 150 is like a tribe upper limit, why 20 people is a good hunting group. So it has a lot of this really simple basic concepts where if you really think about those deeply, they can be applied to entrepreneurship, other things. But understanding humans is really important in understanding this world. Because each person has a different world. Everybody thinks we live in the same world, but actually each person has a different worldview. So that's one book. And the second book I would recommend is much simpler reading, Economics in One Lesson. So that really teaches you what's wrong with this world, especially in terms of economics. Some very simple concepts. What's the third one that I usually recommend? Well, actually, the third one is even simpler. The Law by Frederick Bastiat. The Law is written in 1850, so like almost a couple hundred years old. But that concept is very simple. The law should be protecting people's self, property, and liberty. So that's all what laws should do, and governments and laws should not interfere with our business, etc. So as long as you're not hurting others, you're not hurting yourself, it should be good. So so those are sort of more of the worldview books I would recommend. And I believe having a worldview, having an accurate view of the world is really, really important before you start thinking about entrepreneurship, businesses, etc.
Thank you so much, CZ.
Cheers.
Awesome. I think we'll go to our last question of the day, which we've run well over time, and we'll go to Singapore, to NTU blockchain, and let's go to Bernard.
Hi, CZ. Bernard here
Hello,
from
Bernard.
Singapore.
Yep.
Honored to be here, and thank you, Anthony. Just a question from me. What projects would you like to see developer building on Binance Smart Chain? And another question would be, any tips before applying grant on Binance X? Yeah, that's all for me.
Sure. I mean, yeah, we absolutely want to see more developers working on Binance Chain. And right now, there's a relatively simple process to apply for grants. I believe the email address is called buidl, BUIDL, at binance.com. That's the email address that you should send your project information with, and just say, look, you want to apply for a grant, and this is what you're developing. Why is it good? Why are you going to be able to develop it, and how does it help the ecosystem, etc. The grants are not that big. They range from like a few $1,000s to maybe like $50,000 or to $100,000 for some of the more mature, slightly bigger projects. And the grants are giving us grants. There's no discussion of equity. We don't have to become shareholders in your company or project. It's just a grant given to you to help with your development. Yeah, I mean, we do have a decent presence in Singapore, so do write us, and some of the team members can potentially even meet you in person and to talk about it. So yeah, do apply. Yeah, I mean, we fully encourage it. And for us, for Binance, this is something that we want to do fairly actively to help to sort of bootstrap the community. So it's not something that's super strict, super tough to get. There's a lot of people applying with really random ideas, so we do have to do a lot of filtering. But if you have a decent project, do apply. And also, yeah, again, I would really recommend applying for an internship at Binance as well. Those things are easier to get, and once you're in Binance, you know all the people. Much easier to get grants later on.
I'm sorry, referring to the first question, what projects would you like to see developer building on Binance Smart Chain? Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I missed those. Sure, I misunderstood the first question, so sorry about that. I think, to be honest, again, I don't want to dictate like 5 categories of projects we want, because that just kills creativity quite a lot. I think anything you think is creative, anything that you think can attract users, is worth it. I would say on top of my mind right now, DeFi, all the different liquidity pools, stuff like that. There's a lot of them. But look, if you have a better idea, great. Anything to do with trading, if you're into derivatives, that's also okay. Those things are fun, but derivatives are much harder to do. Fun games are good. E-commerce applications are good. Payment solutions are good. Wallets are good. I don't know. Different type of encryption algorithms like multi-sig, threshold signatures. All of those are good. Any performance improvements on existing projects are good. If you look at any of the, well, there's an even simpler one before that. The porting any of the Ethereum popular Ethereum projects onto Binance Smart Chain is good. That's usually an easy one. Probably not as exciting, but if you can do performance improvements on them, user experience improvements on them, all of those things are good. So yeah, there's a lot of different things that could potentially be done. I actually don't. Yeah, I want to be careful. Like, I think what I by just saying this, I'm actually limiting a lot of the imaginations, which is probably not good. So yeah, I would say, look, go crazy. You're getting a grant, not a loan, so you don't have to pay it back. Yeah.
Awesome, great question, brother. Well, I want to bring things to a close there because Cece's been very generous with his time, and we've extended. So first of all, thank you very much. What I want to do before we finish, just because it's a nice moment, if people could switch their cameras on, I'd love to get a screenshot because it's actually very hard now that we do online events to kind of capture the moment, but let's try and catch the moments. If you can turn your screens on, and Leah from our team is going to make sure we get some nice photos here for
absolutely. This will make a nice tweet.
Exactly. You can see what I'm saying.
I gotta make sure I move my mouse so I get people's names on.
So Leah, make sure you're getting some as well. I'll get some as well. So everyone, 3, 2, 1, smile.
That's pretty nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, look, I want to say an enormous thank you. And we say at the end of these events, but I can say with absolute sincerity that was amazing. And then your answers and your insights were extraordinary, quite frankly. And I know that these events are fun and they're informative, but this was next level. So I want to thank you so much for your time, so much for your insights. And I think you will have inspired many students, as you can see, all around the world to kind of innovate, to take risks, to educate themselves more. And we hope do great stuff with Binance, either working for them, for you and for the company, or building on Binance Smart Chain, or taking advantage of the many fantastic kind of initiatives that you guys have brought to the space over the last few years. So thank you very much, and on behalf of everyone, thank you so much for your time this afternoon, this evening.
Yeah, and Anthony, thank you for organizing this, and thank you for having me here. And for you guys, thanks for listening in to my rambling. But I truly enjoyed it, and I really hope you guys had some value in this chat. And really looking forward to you guys, hopefully within part of the Binance team in some capacity, or the Binance community in some capacity. And yeah, I mean, if you guys have questions, my email is cz@binance.com. Yeah, or tweet at me. Yeah, hope to see you guys in the community, and good luck with your projects. If you have serious difficulties with entrepreneur issues, do feel free to reach out. I will not guarantee that I can respond all the time, but if I can, I will try. I do really like to try to help entrepreneurs out. It's definitely not an easy road, but it's one of the most rewarding roads to travel. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Well, we will have the slides and the video for this, not the slides, so you can see my natural approach. We will have the video and the transcript for this up in a few days' time. All of those who want to learn the lessons one more time. But once again, Cece, thank you so much. And to everyone else,
thank you so much, guys. Yeah.
And see you all very soon in the hackathon. Thanks,
bye-bye.
guys.
Thank you. Bye.